If this is not meant to be, I will make peace with that and I will live a beautiful life, a full, beautiful, abundant life. I will not allow my infertility, my miscarriage, this beautiful baby that was meant to be, not meant to be this time. I will not allow that to take away from my love, my joy, my happiness, my life, my dreams, my goals.
Welcome to the She Who Dares podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Wilson, the founder of She Who Dares. I'm a specialized breakthrough and mindset coach, business mentor, online course creator, and your number one no BS hype woman. I'm here to remind you who the fuck you are and reignite your personal power through powerful and expanding conversations on all things business, mindset, and energetics, to help you break through to your next level of success in all areas of your life, business, and bank account. Each episode is designed to expand your mind, shift your identity, raise your frequency, as well as give you success strategies to help you step into your highest, most powerful, abundant, successful, and magnetic you. So, I dare you to join me each episode, and I double dare you to implement what you learn and go all in on you. All in on your life, your business, your success. Because if you do, like so many of my She Who Dares clients and students, you will become everything that you know deep down you can be. Ready? Let's friggin' do this.
Hi guys, welcome back to the She Who Dares podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Wilson. The first thing I want to say is thank you for your patience, because this is the first episode that I'll be releasing in 3 to 4 weeks. I've taken a bit of a pause and break from podcasting. I took a pause and a break from coaching and my business, and I took a big pause and break from showing up online as well. For those of you who are on my email list, for those of you who follow me on social media, you probably already know what has been going down in my personal life. And for me personally, coming back to the podcast, coming back to social media from the break that I've had, it feels really important and necessary for me, for my community, for women to really speak openly about what I've been experiencing, because I've always spoken really openly about, the things that happen behind the scenes of She Who Dares, because it is relevant to the coaching and mentoring and personal development work that I do in the world with women. So for those of you who don't know what's been going on and why I've taken a break, is after 9 years trying to conceive, which I've shared on episodes before, we actually fell pregnant naturally for the first time in 9 years trying to conceive. And unfortunately and sadly and heartbreakingly, we actually miscarried. And about 9 weeks and 5 days into our pregnancy, we received the heartbreaking news that this was no longer a viable pregnancy and I was experiencing a miscarriage. And I mean, it's been tough, really tough. I'm okay. I am okay. And we've been on a very long, hard, difficult fertility journey. And there's been so much, oh my God, the last kind of 6, 8, 9 weeks of our lives has just been the most incredible and the most heartbreaking. And so I just wanted to give you a little synopsis. We fell pregnant, we miscarried. And in today's episode, I just want to share with you guys the story, because we fucking fell pregnant. And it's I get emotional just thinking about it, because we've been trying to conceive for 9 years. And naturally, like we've done so many things. Like we haven't just done one thing in the 9 years. We've done many things. We've tried many different natural ways of falling pregnant. And then about 5 years ago, we went down the avenue of IVF, and we've been doing IVF like on and off over the last 5 years. We actually did back-to-back transfers from September till December in 2024. And both of those failed and just took a big toll on me physically. And so we took a little bit of a break. And then in that break, we actually started working with like a specialized fertility naturopath and herbalist, which I have shared a little bit on the podcast previously. I haven't really gone into details. And so in the 9 years trying to conceive, we have done a lot and we have tried many different things. And so to have gone through 9 years trying to conceive and actually have fallen pregnant naturally is like such an incredible gift. One that I am, and so is my partner Bruce, so incredibly grateful for, because we now have evidence that we did not have before that we can fall pregnant naturally. And so, as heartbreaking as it is to have lost that pregnancy and miscarried and navigated all of that, the beautiful silver lining that we have now is this beautiful piece of evidence that, holy shit, like we fell pregnant and we fell pregnant naturally, and I'm 41. And so it feels like we are experiencing the hardest part of our journey that we've experienced in 9 years. But at the same time, we have more hope than ever before. We have more evidence than ever before. And this is the closest that we have ever been to actually starting our family, to actually having a child, being mum and dad. So it's so like layered and complex and heartbreaking. There's every single emotion, but also there's a lot that we are grateful for and angry for and all of it. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we're just like, we're so positive. No, we have navigated a lot of different emotions and feelings over the last few weeks. But let me roll the tape back because I want to share with you guys on the She Who Dares podcast the story about how we fell pregnant, because I want to celebrate it. Like, this was the beginning of life. This was our baby. This was a baby. This is a baby that we're always going to remember and we're always going to love and we're always going to wonder what could have been. And so there is a big part of me in my grieving process of this experience that I do want to move on, and I am moving on, but I also want to honor what could have been and celebrate that. And so if you guys follow me on social media, you'll know that we went away for my birthday in February. And that whole trip, I had no idea that I was pregnant. I had literally been doing no alcohol, no gluten, very minimal dairy, eating like, I would say between 80 and 90% organic. Like I was really on quite a strict wellness fertility protocol with our new naturopath. But then we were heading away for my birthday and we were like, let's just, enjoy ourselves. We had like 6 days away in Noosa. And so we kind of stopped our fertility protocol. And I mean, I was drinking wine every day. I was thoroughly enjoying the wines, the cocktails, the cheeses, the oysters. Oh my God, I ate my body weight in oysters and seafood and just indulged. It was my 41st birthday and we go away every year for my birthday and we always go to Noosa. And so we just kind of relaxed up on all the fertility stuff and was on that holiday. And I was pregnant the whole time I was on that holiday and I had no idea. The day that we left Noosa to drive back to Toowoomba, which is where we live, it's about a 3.5-hour drive. On that drive back, I actually slept the whole way and I felt so exhausted. And I thought it was probably the fact that I, was eating whatever I wanted, drinking alcohol every day, and that holiday was coming to an end. So I didn't really think much of the fact that I slept the whole way home, which is not something that I would usually do. And I just felt so exhausted to the point where I said to Bruce multiple times on the drive home, I might be getting sick. Like I might be coming down with something. We then got home from that drive, and then I like hopped on the couch and I slept again like late afternoon. Again, didn't think anything of it. I was just so exhausted. Like I'd never felt that level of exhaustion before. And it got worse. But initially I was just like, wow, I'm so tired, but I've been drinking and indulging. So like that makes sense. Anyway, that was Saturday. We actually got back from Noosa on the Saturday. And that night I had a dream. Oh, that makes me emotional. Excuse me. There probably will be lots of tears throughout this episode, but you know me, I love to express my emotions. So this is very natural for me. That night I had a dream, and I had a dream that I was pregnant. And this is not the first time I've had a dream that I am pregnant. Over the last 9 years trying to conceive, I've had multiple dreams. Many, many times have I thought I was pregnant. Many, many times have I convinced myself that I was pregnant. And so when I woke up on the Sunday morning, which was the second of the third, which will always be such a beautiful day for us. But on that Sunday morning, the second of the third, I woke up. I didn't tell Bruce that I was pregnant in my dream because that's happened 100 times and I've not been pregnant. And I woke up and I remembered my dream. And the first thing that I did was go and check my period up. And it was 4 days before my period was due, 4 or 5 days. And I honestly just thought to myself, Crystal, don't do this to yourself. You have done this to yourself so many times. You've convinced yourself that you're pregnant so many times. So we're not going to do that for the next 4 days. Go and find a test. And I knew I had tests left over from our last IVF transfer. So I went and grabbed a test in secret, didn't even share any of this with Bruce, which is not like me. I tell Bruce literally everything. But I just was like, I really just was just dismissing the dream. I was also like thinking about how painful it has been for me in the past to start having those thoughts that I'm pregnant and then waiting for my period to start. And then it starts and then I'm so let down. I have literally done that countless times. I can't even tell you how many times over the last 9 years. So I went and got a test from our pantry and I went to the bathroom and I did the test. And now I have, in the last 9 years, as you can imagine, 9 years trying to conceive, almost every month for the last 9 years, I have done hundreds of pregnancy tests. And what was different about when I did this pregnancy test is straight away there were 2 lines. It was a very faint line, but there was 2 lines. Whereas usually when I do a pregnancy test and all the hundreds of times I've done it and they've been negative, there is definitely no first line. And then the negative line is very strong. So I was kind of sitting there and straight away, as I was kind of watching the test process in my hands, I could see there was a faint first line and then there was a negative line, which meant that there was 2 fucking lines and we were pregnant. And I just kind of like sat there in a bit of shock because also our last IVF embryo transfer that we did in December, my doctor had me do a HCG booster and we were testing about 10 to 12 days after the transfer and the booster hadn't left my system and we were getting positives. And we kind of thought we were pregnant then, but they were actually false positives because of the medication that I was on. That was like a whole nother story, a whole nother heartbreaking situation. And so when I got this test, there was a part of me that instantly went to, this is another false positive. This test is broken. Like, what herbs have I been on? Could this be another false positive? And so I ran into the room and I was like, I just did a pregnancy test. Bruce was like, what? Still waking up? And there are 2 lines. And Bruce, again, like we've had so much letdown, so many fails. So we've never had a positive. So even Bruce in that moment, like we're both so scared to just celebrate it because we've done that before and it hasn't worked out. And so even then initially Bruce is asking me questions like, are you sure? Like, give me the test. We're researching the actual tests that we're using online. Like, do they produce false positives? And this is a Sunday. And then I was like, holy shit. And I had about 3 other tests. So I did every test that I had, as you can imagine. If you've ever been pregnant, I feel like your first positive, you're like doing as many tests as you can. So I did multiple tests. They were all coming up as positive, and it was 4 days before my cycle was due. So that meant I'm pregnant, like I'm really pregnant. I actually then paid for a personal blood test online because the Monday I think was a public holiday, and I really wanted to get that like blood test to say that I was absolutely pregnant. And so two things I wanted to do. I wanted to get the blood test as quickly as possible to confirm that I was pregnant, because it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And then the other thing I wanted to do, just through my research, I knew that clear blue digital tests, you had to be a certain amount of HCG to get the different readings. So it's like 1 to 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and then 3+ weeks. And so I knew that if I went and got a clear blue digital test, that would let me know based on the reading that it was going to give me how much HCG I had in my system. Now, for people who've never experienced fertility issues, you're probably like, you're pregnant. Like my mom was like, why do we need to do all this? And the thing is, we've been on such a long fertility journey that we know all the ins and outs of all these things because of the journey that we've been on. And unfortunately, we don't just get a positive and think, oh, we're pregnant. There's a lot more that goes into that. So we went and got the clear blue, and I tested on that, and it said 1 to 2 weeks pregnant. And so because I knew I was 4 days out from my cycle, and I also knew when I ovulated because we'd been tracking our ovulation, I was like, oh God, like before I even got the blood test, this was enough evidence for me to go, we're really pregnant. Like this has happened, we're pregnant. Then I had the blood test, and that confirmed that we were pregnant. My initial HCG reading on Sunday, the 2nd or the 3rd, which was about 4 or 5 days before my cycle, was only 16. And that really that really did scare me. I was like, wow, like that's a really low reading. And then what I learned just through my doctor is that it's less about the amount of HCG. And what's much more important is that it's doubling, tripling every 48 to 72 hours. And so because of the long, extensive 9 years of infertility that we have experienced, and then also my age of being 41, I just turned 41, meant that I'm high risk. And so what actually happened from that initial blood test of a HCG of 16, we started to get blood tests every 48 hours. So our next HCG blood test was like, 2 days later, and it had risen to 57. Then 2 days later, it had risen to 175. And so these numbers are actually more than doubling. So we are like, oh my God, we're pregnant. It's happening. How exciting. Like we really then let down our guard, and we just really felt like the joy, the happiness, and we celebrated. And it was so hard to not tell people initially. I called my parents the Sunday at 10 a.m. when I had the first pregnancy test, but we wanted to share it. We wanted to celebrate. We had waited 9 years to even experience this moment. So we were just over the moon. Then 2 days later, it jumped from 175 to 452. My progesterone was perfect. My body was naturally producing a high level of progesterone, which was so incredible because in all of my IVF cycles, I had to take 3 progesterone pessaries a day because I wasn't producing progesterone. So that was really cool. My body was doing its thing, like the herbs, the supplements, the work we have been putting in from a wellness and health perspective. We were really seeing the results of this. Then we're like, okay, so then a week after that initial blood test, my HCG was over 1,000. 2 days later, it was almost 3,000. And then this is where things started to take a turn. We got to about the 2-week mark of our pregnancy, and our HCG started to not double. It just slightly started to slow down. So we went from like a reading of 2,810 to 5,080. So you can just see it was just slightly under the double. And at the same time, towards the end of that second week, Like the exhaustion was just out of control. Every time I stood up, I felt like I was going to faint and I would just have to lie down. And I was like very, very faint, very, very weak. I wasn't experiencing any nausea or any of those kind of common pregnancy symptoms, but just incredibly weak, sleeping all day. I was like in major survival mode and I had never felt that level of exhaustion and I had never felt so weak. So not only was I just like exhausted, I was also like really couldn't even stand without feeling like I was about to faint. And I was just having these weird kind of episodes. And so when my doctor rang me with the HCG reading with the first time where it didn't double, she then asked me about how am I feeling? And I shared with her that I was feeling faint, dizzy, weak, exhausted, sleeping all day, and just really not feeling well. And that was on a Friday. And she was like, let's do another test on Monday. I was like, no problems. We did the test on, this is Monday the 17th. So now we're literally 15 days, been enjoying our pregnancy. Everything's been tracking exactly how it should. And on that Monday the 17th, we did a blood test and the HCG was only 5,770. So it only risen from the Friday, which was 5,080 to 5,700 in that kind of more of that 48, 72 hour window. And my doctor called, it was 6 p.m. on Monday, the 17th of the 3rd. And my doctor, she was incredible. She was calling me like every day. She called me at 6 p.m. and she said, Crystal, listen, it's not great. Your HCG hasn't doubled. It's slowed down quite a lot. How are you feeling? And that particular day, I had not gotten out of bed. I was in bed. Every time I stood, I literally felt the wind just escape me and I had to like quickly lie back down before I felt like I was going to faint. Now, initially I thought this was I'm anemic, I have low iron and I'm B12 deficient. And just before I found out I was pregnant, just had bloods done and we had just decided that I needed to get B12 injections and I needed another iron infusion. And I was due to get that when I came back from Noosa. But because I was pregnant, I couldn't get any of that stuff. And so when I was having these like extreme fainting, weakness, exhaustion, in my mind, I was like, wow, this feels like the most extreme version of my anemia, low iron when it happens. And so I just put it down to that. But when I spoke to my doctor on that Monday night, the 17th of the 3rd, she said to me, Crystal, I'm concerned that you're having an ectopic pregnancy. And my advice to you is to go and present immediately to your local hospital in Toowoomba. So my doctor is still in Brisbane. She's not local to Toowoomba. And so that day our car had broken down, like an electrical issue. So we had no car. It was 6 p.m. on a Monday night. And she is telling me that the symptoms that I'm having and now the HCG not doubling are signs that I'm having an ectopic pregnancy. So Bruce and I Ubered to the emergency straight away. And we walked into emergency. It's our first time at the Toowoomba emergency and it was packed. It's the only emergency in the whole of Toowoomba. There was like at least 50 people in there at 6 p.m. on a Monday night, but maybe it was like 7 p.m. when we got there. And there was probably about 4 or 5 people in the line. So I had to line up to wait to get seen by the receptionist to let them know what was happening. And as I'm standing in that line, I am just like beads of sweat dripping off me. I am so weak. I'm feeling nauseous. I'm feeling like at any minute I am absolutely going to pass out. And as I get to the front desk of emergency, the lady is like getting my name and details. And she's like, are you all right? And I'm like, I'm going to faint. I'm going to faint. And they run around the thing. They kind of grab me. And at this point, Bruce is seeing that I'm really struggling. So he's jumped up and he is like coming to me as well. And I literally, as they're walking me into the emergency behind the kind of like actually into hospital, I faint and they get me in a chair and they start running tests. And I didn't know this, but ectopic pregnancy is life-threatening. It's very, very dangerous. And so I was already a category 2 and would have been seen immediately anyway, presenting to the emergency based on advice from my GP for potential ectopic pregnancy. But then fainting on arrival definitely got me pushed through as well, which was great. Then we're in emergency and they were incredible. I thought I was miscarriaging. I didn't know what was going on, but I just felt so ill and so weak and really, really scared. And I was just crying and they were asking me all these questions. And I just was like so confused. I just couldn't believe that potentially I was having an ectopic pregnancy. There was a part of me that just felt like, God, so many thoughts, but that part of me was like, after 9 years trying to conceive, this feels cruel. This feels unfair. This feels like, haven't we already paid our dues? Haven't we already suffered enough? Haven't we already experienced enough failure and loss? And then also another thought that I kept having was, I mean, I know women who have had miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. Then I did have thoughts of like, well, why should I be so lucky? Why should it be so easy for me? And it's so bizarre. Like our inner mean girl, she can be so fierce, but there were lots of thoughts around why should I be so lucky when other women have suffered more than me? Even though we've had 9 years of infertility, 9 years trying to conceive, and you're just thinking all these thoughts, but that was an incredibly tough night in hospital. However, what ended up happening was when I was in hospital, the first thing they did was do my bloods again to check my HCG. And they called in a sonographer to come in and give me an internal exam. I've got a tilted like uterus, so I have to have internal examinations. And so it was about an hour's wait for the sonogram to come in and for me to fill my bladder with enough water to have that. They wanted to do an external and an internal. And my HCG from Monday morning, this is when it was such an emotional roller coaster. It already is emotional roller coaster, but then you'll see when I tell you these things. So on Monday morning, my HCG reading was 5,770. And then I've been admitted to hospital for potential ectopic pregnancy. And they do a blood test that's about like 8 p.m. and it's jumped to 7,000. So that's positive. It's like, okay, cool. Like it's catching back up again. Like it's still under the double, but this is good. It's like had a huge jump today. And then we had the sonogram lady come in. They did the internal and it was in my uterus. We saw the sac. She dated me at that point at 5 weeks, 4 days, which was right on track of what we thought we were. And we were told everything's good. This is a viable pregnancy. We're going to keep tracking it. It's not ectopic. And then we really put down all of my symptoms to like extremely low iron and all the things that were happening. And we were sent on our way. And then we were told to wait 1 week. It could have been actually 2 weeks, maybe 10 days actually. And they wanted to do a second scan to see the progression of the pregnancy. And so we kind of like, huge, huge highs, huge low. Then it's like, okay, cool. I think it's going to be okay, right? We waited that 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks is really interesting. The first kind of 2 weeks of our pregnancy, I felt so pregnant. I was so exhausted, the fainting, the exhaustion. I literally would wake up, go back to sleep, sleep again the afternoon. I've never had more naps than I've in my entire life. I'm not a day sleeper, but I needed them. I was so exhausted. I was in major survival mode and I was having these like beautiful experiences of like these giant full body butterflies, this euphoric, like full body sensations of like flutters all through my body that I would just have to like stop. They would take my breath away. It was the most beautiful feeling. And it was this feeling of being pregnant. I've never been pregnant before in this way. So I'm not sure if like those of you who have children or experience pregnancy, like you'll know like this experience, these feelings that I was having, but they were so beautiful. And the other pregnancy symptom that I was having on top of that was like the peeing. Oh my God, peeing every 15 minutes, like just constant peeing. And another symptom I was having the most every night, the most intense dreams of my life. And I'm a dreamer anyway, so that wasn't like hugely, it was just really apparent that like every night I would have the most crazy dreams. And I was also experiencing the post nasal drip, which is apparently a really common pregnancy symptom. And the other thing that was happening to me, I was like feeling such intense emotions. Like I would go into Bruce's office and I would just break down and cry like the loudest, sobbiest, like, because there were just so many emotions and hormones rushing through my body because Bruce works from home. So I'd go into his office and I just like lie in the spare bedroom in his office and he'd be like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm just like feeling a lot of things. And then I would just like sob, like huge sob. And then I would go from sobbing to hysterically laughing and crying because I knew how ridiculous it was that I was sobbing with like such dramatics. And then I'd be like laughing and happy. I felt so pregnant and I miss it. Oh my God, I can't wait to feel all of that again. And so after we had that incident where they thought I was having an ectopic pregnancy, I noticed that my symptoms, like I just started to say to Bruce, do you think that I'm not as tired as I was? Like, have you noticed I'm not peeing as much? Like over that next 2 weeks while we we're waiting for the next scan, it just felt like I didn't feel as pregnant anymore. I started to like just feel like not as intense all of those symptoms. And as that was happening, I was very much like, no, 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 I still had a nap yesterday. But I think intuitively I knew, but I didn't want to face that. I was like, did not want to face that at all. I was too scared. I was like in so much fear. So that was one of the other reasons that my doctor thought I was having an ectopic pregnancy is I was also experiencing some spotting, fainting, my HCG not doubling. And so after we were then got released from hospital, we had another like 10 to 12 days waiting for the next scan. My God, every time I went to the toilet and wiped, I was in so much fear that I was going to see blood. Do you know what I mean? And it was just crippled with so much fear. I went from being so happy and like everything was just traveling how it was meant to like all of a sudden it's so much fear and just hyper aware of everything and so fearful that something bad was going to happen. But also trying to like embody the work that I teach, how I usually am, trying to remind myself, like, and just try to stay positive. Then we went for our second scan. This scan was really scary. We potentially had an ectopic pregnancy and we're going in for this second scan. We had to wait 2 weeks. And you know what it's like when you've had to do that? It's hell. And we went for the scan. As soon as we could see my uterus up on the screen, I knew that something bad had happened or something bad was happening because it looked no different. It looked like an empty sack. And she also said, like, look, I'm not seeing any progression in this pregnancy. And she was like, there's a yolk. So it's been another 2 weeks. And now she's still measuring me at that kind of 5-week, 4-day mark. And there's no heartbeat. There was maybe like the beginnings of a fetal pole. We really wanted that scan to be like, here's the concrete evidence, things are progressing, of course. But actually what we received was more confusing information like, oh, it could be okay, it might not be okay. That's what kept happening. Every blood test, every scan just became really stressful because it was like, look, things are slow, but like it could be okay. Like no one was really saying anything like this is negative and this is really bad. It was more like, let's just see, let's wait another 2 weeks, let's get some more bloods, which I get. Why? Because there's no hard and fast rule in pregnancy. There are women who have exactly what I experienced, and then they go to the next scan. There's a fully developed little embryo baby in there. And so I get why that was happening, but it was just really stressful. So then at that particular scan, what she shared with me is that I actually released 2 eggs. And she said, you released 2 eggs. Did you know that? And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And she was, yeah, you've released 2 eggs. And she didn't really give us any other information about that. So we left that second scan after being in hospital with potential ectopic pregnancy with being told there's no progression, but it could be okay. Let's just have another scan in a week. But also you released 2 eggs. And then when I spoke to my doctor, she was like, okay, this is concerning again because now ectopic pregnancy was back on the table. My bloods were still progressing, but not doubling. So now they're at the 14,000 mark. And my doctor actually thought that potentially, which is very rare because I'd released 2 eggs, that I had one pregnancy in my uterus that wasn't developing, and that I had a second pregnancy, like in a fallopian tube or somewhere that it shouldn't be. And these were like, some type of twins, but one pregnancy in my uterus, one developing outside the uterus. And it was the pregnancy that was outside of my uterus that was actually the one that was producing the high level of HCG, because the pregnancy that was in my uterus, that was looking like very slow, but I had a high HCG, even though it wasn't doubling. So every bit of information that we were getting was really confusing, and we just were in so much limbo and so much fear and had no idea, honestly, what was going on. And every time we went for a blood test, spoke to a doctor, it felt like they also couldn't give us any answers as well. And so at this point, my doctor in Brisbane, she said, Crystal, I think it's really important that you actually go to the early pregnancy intervention center. There's a lot of complications going on. We need to check all of these things. She was very concerned that there was an ectopic pregnancy still. However, we had scans. We ended up ruling that out. And we had another scan. And again, at this third or fourth scan, there was some progression. The fetal pole had grown millimeters, but not enough that it should have. So they were like, let's wait another week. This kept happening for like 4 weeks, another week. Just wait another week. Let's do some more tests, see what's happening. And then on Friday, the 11th of the 4th, after being in limbo for 4 weeks, and like we'd already told our family, like it was really difficult. We were so excited, and then all of a sudden it was taken away from us, and then it was just so much fear. But on the 11th of April, we went in for another scan. This is our 4th scan. And at this scan, they were like, there's been no progression, and you should be, based on your ovulation and your cycle, you should be 9 weeks and 4 days, I think it was. But they were still dating me at 5 weeks. So we'd been 4 weeks of scans, and every scan they had dated me earlier and earlier. And yeah, there was no progression. And at this point, they told me that I was having what's called a missed miscarriage, which means that the pregnancy stopped developing at around that 5-week mark. We never heard a heartbeat. It never got to that stage. And that my body was most likely not going to actually release this pregnancy, and that created its own set of problems and complications, because it's been 4 weeks and my body hasn't miscarried when it should have about 4 weeks ago. And so they gave me the option that I could have a DNC operation, which is where I'd be put under, and they would go in and remove the pregnancy that was non-viable, that I could take the medication, or that I could wait it out. But waiting it out comes with lots of risk, because it could take weeks and weeks, if not months, and I could get sick, and that could create further complications fertility-wise for me. Taking the tablet, so my body would kind of abort the pregnancy on its own. More often than not, in missed miscarriages, I could have taken those tablets and then still needed a DNC, that it wouldn't actually release like everything it needed to. And so then a DNC, that also comes with complications, because the more times you have a DNC procedure, it creates like tissue in the uterus, which can cause infertility. And through all my IVF treatments over the last 5 years, I think I've had already 2 to 3 DNC procedures as part of my IVF treatment. And so this was going to be either my 3rd or 4th DNC, but my first DNC where I actually had been pregnant. The others that I'd had with IVF were more about a cleaning and scraping and rejuvenating the cells to try and promote pregnancy for before transfer. And so I opted, based on that information, to have the DNC. And at this point, we had been through, we're pregnant, we're so excited. We shared it with our family. We were celebrating this baby already. I mean, I'd already started organizing things in my business. You may have heard me say, like, I'm not taking on any clients past June. Like, all of that was like, there was so much preparation going on behind the scenes to welcome this pregnancy, this baby into our lives. And I was doing all the planning. And I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to put myself at risk. And I didn't want to walk around with a pregnancy, like a gestational sac with a non-viable pregnancy in my body. Like, that to me was just a trauma that I did not want to experience. And so I opted for the DNC, and I had that 3 days later. And after I had the DNC, I mean, that was just so sad, because we've been on this journey so long that I do want to move on. I want to move on. I want to be okay. And I do move on quickly. I've had to, throughout my whole life, all the different things I've experienced, but very much so in my fertility journey, I have been knocked down a lot, and I have had to get up really quickly to keep going. And going through this, like, I've not experienced anything like this before. Like, we've had lots of failed IVF, we've had lots of disappointing and heartbreaking moments, but we've never been pregnant, and we've never lost a pregnancy. So this felt like I was navigating uncharted territory. I didn't know what to do, what was the right thing to do. And I just decided to take time for me. And I felt that that was super important. And that's what I needed, was to take time for me. And so that's why I stopped the podcast. That's why I haven't been on social media much. I mean, now I'm starting to kind of be okay and getting back on there. And I took time from all work. I spent the first week in bed. I didn't get out of bed. I watched 27 episodes of Grey's Anatomy, which is my emotional support show. And it was so interesting because we're watching Grey's. I just put it on as like background, and I love it. Bruce doesn't really watch it, but where I was up to in the seasons, almost every episode was about miscarriage, pregnancy loss, infertility. And I found that really cathartic. Bruce was like, "Do you want to turn this off?" And I was like, "No, I actually need to feel this grief." Like, watching this show where somebody else is navigating something, I just cried. I cried and I grieved, and I went through a whole range of emotions of, like, initially I was just so fucking angry because I felt like this isn't not meant to be my story. I've already had 9 years of infertility. This is not how it's meant to go. I never envisioned that we would go through 9 years of infertility and failed IVF to finally fall pregnant and then have a miscarriage. Like, I just never envisioned that. I just never thought that that would be a part of my story. Was I naive? Maybe. I just thought we've already suffered enough. I thought I already paid my dues, whatever the fuck that means, but I just never thought that this would be part of my story. I thought after 9 years that when we fell pregnant, we would fall pregnant. You know what I mean? That would be the joy. We'd already gone through everything we'd gone through, but that's just not how it's played out. And now I've taken the time to grieve. I really nurtured myself. I was angry. I was, sad. I have cried. I have screamed. I have done all the things that I needed to do to navigate this incredibly heartbreaking thing that we've been experiencing. And I'm crying right now in this podcast episode, but I am okay, and I will be okay because I'm always fucking okay. And it's so interesting, that piece as well. I was at lunch with some girlfriends yesterday, and they're asking me how I am. And I just said, I'm fine. And I'm angry that I'm fine. I'm so fucking resilient and so strong and so programmed to get knocked down and get back up quickly that this time, it's really weird. I've never felt angry about my resilience before, but losing this pregnancy, going through this miscarriage, experiencing this loss, and I've never experienced something like this before, and knowing how quickly I was going to recover, made me angry, because this time there was a baby. This time we were pregnant. This time there was the beginning of life. And I wanted to grieve. I wanted to be sad. I wanted to be in bed. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to feel it all. And I wanted to feel it as long as possible because it meant something. And I didn't want to just get back up like I always do. I didn't want to just recover and move on. And I didn't want to be okay, because I'm always okay. And I love that about myself. But this time, I didn't want to be okay. I wanted to go through what I needed to go through. And I am okay. I took 2 weeks off and I'm okay. And I am okay. We are okay. And I feel good and I feel strong. Obviously, talking about it brings up all of those emotions and feelings. But I've gone from angry and sad to grateful and sad. And I have been really in this beautiful place of like the depths of my grief and the depths of gratitude, because we now know we can fall pregnant naturally. And we were very umming and ahhing, will we do IVF? We still got frozen embryos left over from our IVF. Should we do more IVF? We were really up in the air. And I feel like, as heartbreaking as this has been, the gift that we have received is that we can fall pregnant naturally. My body did it. Bruce's body did it. We can do this. It's going to happen. And then there's the flip side of that. Then I think, holy shit, are we going to have more miscarriages? Like, is there going to be, just like it's taken 9 years for us to get to this point, are we going to have a year of experiencing this over and over again before we actually have a healthy, viable pregnancy? All of these thoughts come up, and I don't want to think those thoughts. I don't want to indulge in that negativity. I want to be positive, but sometimes you have to have these conversations. And so that's also something that I'm fearful of. I said to Bruce, I feel like I have this intuitive feeling that I'm going to fall pregnant again and it's going to happen again. And I don't know whether that's my intuition or whether that's just my fear and my grief, but it just brings up a lot. But the place that I've landed is in a place of deep gratitude, because I do believe in the timing. My honest, true belief and how I live my life is I believe in timing. And even though we've had a very long and difficult fertility journey, there's a part of me that knows our time will come, and it's coming soon. I'm 41. I don't envision myself being pregnant at 45. To be honest with you, I'm giving it this year. We're back on the wagon already. We're back on everything. Our fertility protocol. I'm giving it this year. And after this year, we'll decide what we want to do. But I don't see myself continuing on forever. If this is not meant to be, I will make peace with that. And I will live a beautiful life, a full, beautiful, abundant life. I will not allow my infertility, my miscarriage, this beautiful baby that was not meant to be this time, I will not allow that to take away from my love, my joy, my happiness, my life, my dreams, my goals. And so, yes, I have been navigating the depths of grief, but I'm also okay. I am okay. I'm strong. I'm resilient. I'm giving it the rest of this year. We're going to give it a really red hot go, like we have the last 9 years. And I believe that I now know that I can fall pregnant. I believe in the timing. I believe that maybe it hasn't been the right time and that the right time is coming. But if this is not part of my path and I don't end up becoming a mother and I don't end up having children, I think what a really important message is, because I see so many women in the fertility space who are navigating these waters as well. I want you to know that I have decided that my life will be fucking beautiful regardless. My life will mean something. My life will be powerful, and I will be okay. I will not allow this period or this loss or what I may not get define the rest of my life. And I want that for every other woman who's navigating fertility, infertility, knowing her time is done, that she won't be becoming a mother in that way that she'd envisioned. And that's really important to me. I'm not saying that's easy. There's going to be a journey. There's going to be healing. There's going to be lots of things I'm going to need to give myself. But I have decided that for myself. And that puts me in a position of power. I'm in my personal power. I can be navigating the grief that I'm navigating right now, and I can still be okay. Navigating the grief, and I can actually be so grateful for our miscarriage. There are so many reasons that I'm grateful for our miscarriage. My body protected me. My body protected our unborn baby. It gave me more time. I now know I can fall pregnant naturally. There's always a silver lining. And for me personally, I could be the victim. I could be sad and miserable and angry and woe is me, and no one would fucking blame me. But it doesn't serve me and my life to sit in that pit. I'm allowing this miscarriage, my infertility, to take the rest of my life and joy away from me if I do that. And I will not allow that no matter what. Because first and foremost, I matter. My happiness matters. My life matters. And regardless of whether I experience more losses or I fall pregnant, I become a mom, whatever happens, I've decided that for myself. Wow, this is like an hour-long episode. This is like one-on-one therapy for Crystal. That feels like everything I want to say. To everyone who's messaged, emailed, commented, sent us love, support, it has meant a lot to us. It has not been an easy. The last kind of 6 to 8 weeks of our lives, it's been difficult, and we have done our best. And even though it's been difficult, we are okay. I'm okay. I am strong. I'm resilient. I'm grateful. And I'm going to make my life beautiful no matter what. And I hope I share this because of the work I do. Me sharing this difficult thing I'm going through and how I'm navigating it and my perspective and what decisions I'm making for myself. This is the work that I do. I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. I'm not a plumber talking about my miscarriage, and teaching about from the place of my grief. I'm a coach and mentor doing it. It matters. And I hope that whatever you're navigating, we're all going through something. You're going through something right now that feels big and hard for you. And I hope that me sharing what I'm going through and how I'm choosing to deal with it and process it and how I'm nurturing myself and the decisions that I'm making for myself, I hope they help you make the decisions that you need to make for yourself, because your life matters, your happiness matters, and you get to create a beautiful life for yourself no matter what. I love you. You're amazing. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. If you loved this episode, be sure to share that with me by leaving me a review, and head over to the She Who Dares official Instagram account at She Who Dares Official, hit follow, slide into my DMs, and share with me the impact this episode has had on you. And before you go, I'm going to leave you with this. The universe is responding to you. It is following your lead. You are the one who has to move first. And when you do, the whole universe will move with you, because it's I lead, the universe follows. When I move, the universe moves with me. That is our official She Who Dares mantra. I want you to write it down, put it on a mirror, and I want you to remind yourself of it every day. When I lead, the universe follows. When I move, the universe moves with me. When you follow this She Who Dares mantra, you are going to unlock the magic of the universe, and you are stepping into your most powerful self. I can't wait to see you for the next episode. Thanks for being here.